Hey guys, what's up? Sandu here, I'm back. And it's finally time to reveal the headphone that I've been working, that I've been teasing in my latest 10 reviews or so. Some of you already sent me several questions about it because I was teasing it in my photos, in my video b-rolls. And finally it's time to tell you a lot more about them. So it's a headphone that I've been working for about 6 to 7 months now. And it's called the Apos Caspian headphone. So it's made by Kennerton Audio. So yeah, this is an IEM headphone. It's based on the Kennerton Valley headphone. However, it was reshaped, it was tuned according to my specifications. So right now they have very little in common, actually only the driver that was custom tuned. So it's sounding actually very different. And yeah, this is basically the final product that you can buy, I think, starting with tomorrow. I'll try to be as unbiased and as honest as possible, but as you can understand, there is some pride, some joy, some love in creating something so unique, so cool looking, great sounding, and of course, so easy to enjoy out of your smartphone loaded with lossless audio files, because they are very, very easy to drive. So I want to be clear from the start that Apos Caspian was made with the help of 3 teams. So Apos Audio, of course, Kennerton Audio that did all the heavy lifting, all the manufacturing. So thank you, Valentin. And of course, I was the final guy, the quality assurance guy, in some way. You can say something like that. If you want to learn a lot more about the development cycle, please check out my written review that contains a lot more information. Alright guys, let's check them out. In terms of looks, one of the first goals was making it look very different to any other Kennerton headphone, and the same applies for its sound tuning. This is precisely why we went with a different headband style, different ear cups, ear cup openings, shape, and headphone connectors. Caspian was built using only long-lasting materials, so we made its structure strong but lightweight. We used only steel, aluminum, some leather, wood, and 2 little pieces of plastic. Caspian ear cups are made out of aged oak that doesn't crack in the long run and has excellent acoustic properties. Caspian offers a high comfort level for bigger and smaller heads with little to no side pressure on top of your head. I'm using it at position 2 out of 8. We made sure that even Megamind and Modok could use them in their devilish plans. It's important to mention that its ear pads are handmade and hand-stitched, and those are made out of real leather. One of my first requirements was going with a 4-core cable geometry for a fully balanced configuration. The cable itself uses high-purity, oxygen-free copper conductors with locking-type mini XLR connectors on the headphone end, plus a 1/4-inch headphone jack that could be easily replaced at home with a 4-pin XLR jack, if you please. As for the tech inside, Caspian uses a custom 50mm graphene-coated composite dynamic drivers. A graphene layer was added on top of a composite diaphragm to improve rigidity, lower its distortion, improve its speed and decay. Graphene is stronger than steel, making it hard to damage but really easy to move when applying a magnetic force. As a result, the classical mylar-based driver is improved, having a much better strength, meaning that a higher SPL can be applied without the fear of damaging it. Caspian also uses an ultralight aluminum voice coil covered with a thin layer of copper to increase its electric conductivity. We used a bigger magnet structure compared to its competitors, increasing the magnetic force that is being applied to the driver. Lastly, we wanted a headphone that is very, very easy to drive, that could be enjoyed without the need of a headphone amplifier. Having a sensitivity of 115 dB per 1 mW of power, you can drive this with pretty much everything that has a headphone jack. Okay folks, I'm thirsty for some music, so let's hit some eardrums. In terms of sound performance, knowing all the latest DAC developments, all the latest amplifiers that are going for straight as a line, very linear, very honest sounding, so very detail-oriented DACs and headphone amplifiers, I wanted to add just a little bit of sparkle of soul, of a little bit of fun, let's say so, in these headphones. So we've elevated a little bit its mid-range and its mid-bass by a little, by a few dB, so not by too much, not by too little, just by a right amount, in my opinion. By around 3 to 5 dB the mid-bass, and the mid-range is actually as straight as a line, so it's very linear. So in my opinion, we made a headphone that has a very hefty bass performance, so it's very impressive in the bass, it's punchy, it's fast sounding, it has a fast decay, it offers plenty of layers in the bass, it doesn't have distortions in the bass, very important. And I believe it has also a lifelike mid-range performance, so there is definitely a little bit more happening with voices, with string instruments. All that sounds a little bit weightier. It sounds fuller in the mid-range. I just want to listen to classical music, to jazz, to blues, rock, no matter. And of course, its treble output, I believe it's quite extended, even past top octave. I wanted to make sure that we would not drop the treble, so the upper treble and the mid treble is somewhere at the same level with the mid-range and the sub-bass, but still there is a gentle roll-off in the most sensitive part of our hearing, somewhere between 4 and 7 kilohertz, something like that. There is a roll-off, but that was made on purpose, so you can listen to them for hours and hours with no listening fatigue. You can connect them to bright sounding setups, to linear setups, and of course you would never experience brightness or listening fatigue with this particular model. That was made on purpose. They remind me a little bit about the Sennheiser HD6XX line of headphones. I was actually a little bit inspired by these models, and of course I was inspired by Kennerton Valley, which I believe both are outstanding models in their respective price points. But I do believe that we made Caspian more fun sounding compared to the Sennheisers. They sound deeper, they sound more extended in the frequency response, they sound more detailed, they sound considerably punchier, much more alive in a way. So I believe that this is a job very well done. It's also very important to say that it's much easier to drive compared to both models, but especially to the Sennheiser HD 600 and 650 by a lot, so much easier to drive. You actually don't need any headphone amplifier to drive this model, so that was a requirement that I had from the start. Caspian is actually fuller bodied, is richer sounding, it's creamier sounding compared to your regular entry to mid-level headphones. Those can be dynamic driver or planar magnetics, it doesn't matter. So expect just a more natural presentation, a more natural rendition of the mid-range with the Caspian, and of course a slightly higher degree of detail retrieval compared to mylar or composite diaphragms. So with Caspian, I didn't want to overdo things too much, so all the rises that I've mentioned in the mid-range and mid-bass, all the drops, the roll-offs that I've mentioned in the lower treble, those are actually very gentle and subtle, so I didn't want to make it a Beats headphone or something like that, or following a Harman curve. No, thank you, don't want that. I can start my day with something like Vivaldi, and I can finish it with Slayer, so everything in between is right up my alley. And this is why I wanted to tune it as a daily driver headphone that can work with everything, so they would sound great with classical, electrifying with blues and with jazz, fast, impactful, snappy with electronica, and of course thumping and raw with rock and metal, and I hope that we achieved that. There is something very, very special about the Apos Caspian that I want to mention, and I'm about their very, very high sensitivity. So if you don't have a headphone amplifier the size of a fridge, or you don't have a super big portable digital audio player, no problem, because Caspian was made to be enjoyed out of ordinary headphone jacks, no problem. At 150 dB per 1 milliwatt of power, these are basically the easiest to drive audiophile grade desktop headphones that I have ever used. So they sound much louder compared to Sennheiser HD 600 and much louder compared to all my planar magnetic headphones. Anything that I tried, actually, they sound louder in a way. So as you can see, they don't require gobs of power to be moved. You don't really need a desktop headphone amplifier. You can make them just jumpy and impactful sounding and really hard slamming even out of your ordinary smartphone, laptop, tablet, you name it. I've tried them out of several USB-C dongles and Bluetooth dongles, and I think that they worked just outstanding. As a few examples, Shinelink UA2 and FireBTR 5 and QDLX 5K. Those were sounding very impactful, and I never went past 55% volume-wise, so of course plenty of headroom remained on top. There were plenty of signs of a well-driven headphone, so dynamics were impressive, bass impact was there, so everything just sounded effortless and tightly controlled. In terms of transit response, you should first understand with who you are dealing with. So for me, transit response is the most important part out of headphones and loudspeakers. Here, I've said it. Yeah, to me that is the most important, because when everything is super mellow, boring, uncontrolled, I just cannot feel the music. So I made sure I made sure that Apos Caspian would sound just thumpy, impactful, fast when it comes to transit response. So yeah, you can expect just a higher degree of emotions. They sound fun, they sound engaging. They sound actually more engaging compared to the Sennheiser HD 600. They have much thumper bass. Decay is also quite fast. I've measured their decay and it seems to have a quite speedy driver, but not quite on the same level with a high-end planar magnetic headphone, let's say so. So Caspian delivers just an impactful, visceral bass that always puts a smile on my face, though. I believe that they were speedy sounding from the start, and I believe that graphene coating added some sort of control and maybe a faster decay. Putting all the bias aside, so on a more serious note, I don't believe there is a more impactful and harder slamming headphone in this price bracket of $600. So a faster headphone, yes, you can find a faster headphone in those entry to mid-level planar magnetics are sounding faster, but harder slamming in the bass and ultimately more engaging in the bass, I don't think so. The more I listen to them, the more I'm realizing that Caspian is actually one of the most fun headphones that I've tested in a long time. In terms of soundstage, I wanted to make them big sounding and deep sounding, but I couldn't put, of course, bigger caps. We elongated them a little bit. So this is the biggest caps I could put in this frame right here. And of course, I put the biggest ear cap opening so that excessive energy, bad energy behind the driver would move outside instantly. The cloth that you can see right here, this is an acoustically transparent cloth, so it doesn't, it moves air in and out very easily, and it doesn't color your sound anyway. So this is maximum what I could make them so sound as big as possible, but in my opinion they don't sound massive, so they don't sound larger than life. Instead, it's above this one here in terms of soundstage, so choosing more cozy listening experience in my opinion. In all honesty, soundstage is a little bit exaggerated with headphones, let's say it once for a while. It's important with speakers, with loudspeakers, very important. You can feel that absolutely immediately, but with headphones, all that is a little bit exaggerated. Yeah, some of them sound just a little bit like not here but right here, but the difference isn't that big. With all that said, there are still plenty of headphones that Caspian surpassed as far as soundstage goes, some of them even pricier. I personally find them a little deeper sounding to the Sennheiser HD 600. There is slightly more air traveling down low in the bass, and when that happens you just feel that the sound is heavier, fuller in a way, so bigger in a way, and I believe they sound decently, so there is still a decent soundstage. But of course, don't expect a big enveloping sound like that of Sennheiser HD800 or maybe high-end planar magnetic headphones. More important than ever, they never sounded claustrophobic, they never sound closed in, upfront or muddy, so that never happened with the Caspian, and you can easily deconstruct your music if you want, so pretty easily. There is always some degree of air traveling around, so some coming from my right, some coming from my left, sometimes even behind my back or above my head, so they still can impress you when it comes to soundstage if you listen to the right tunes, to some live recordings. While its soundstage capabilities are above decent, so good but not great, I believe that they are more impressive when it comes to depth, when it comes to pinpoint location of all the notes, so you can easier spot the distance between yourself and maybe a musician, some musical instruments, so maybe to your right, to your left. That is much easier. You can easily catch all those music, all those notes like butterflies with a net, so that is very easy to do with the Caspian. I do believe they have an excellent pinpoint location of the notes, so very good imaging. As for detail retrieval, Caspian is going for a clean and detailed presentation, but it isn't really going for a clinical or super resolving, extremely detailed presentation. More than anything, it just wants to lift your mood, it wants to add some engagement factor, it wants to be listened for a few hours. It isn't really targeting hardcore headphone enthusiasts. For that, you will need to shell a lot more money to get that. I believe that it targets music lovers more than anything else. So you'll still hear plenty of micro details, plenty of small nuances from the tunes, plenty of imperfections from the tunes, but they will always keep over sharpness. They will skip listening fatigue, treble ringing. That will never happen with the Apos Caspian. It's important to say that the leading edges aren't exactly very sharp, and the upper treble, the top octave, isn't really piercing at all, giving an impression that Apos Caspian isn't a very resolving or a detailed-oriented headphone, and all that is actually very, very true. So these aren't really throwing micro details at your face and aren't really shoving upper treble information into your skull so aggressively as other headphones are doing. We balanced the Apos Caspian so they would have just the right technicalities while being really enjoyable and easy to drive. Fear not, this is still an audiophile grade desktop headphone, so you'll hear more nuances compared to a Sennheiser HD600, Mesa 99 Classics, and there is still a little more detail compared to Harmonic Dionysius. Moving on to frequency response, easily the most impressive part about the Caspian is its bass delivery. So yeah, this is an open back dynamic headphone, yet it doesn't lose one single dB when it comes to bass presence, bass energy, bass impact. So it starts strong, even starting with 20 Hz, and receives just a small boost when going towards mid bass. So I find them just very juicy sounding in here, meaty sounding, impactful, easily reaching even the lowest octaves. There is a little bit more bass presence, a little bit more texture, a little bit more air traveling around, even compared to several 1 kilobaud headphones. And of course, all that was made on purpose. So we wanted to make it just a little bit more fun, and we wanted to ditch that boring sounding Harman curve that sucks out mid-range presence and of course some soul from the music. So the only area that receives a small boost is actually its mid-bass region that somewhere between 30 and 100 Hz receives a small boost of 3 to 5 dB. It isn't that much, of course, but it's enough to add some fun factor into the mix. Caspian is also impressive when it comes to mid-range, so it's straight as a line in here, very much on the same level with the sub bass and upper treble. Its vocal performance is actually outstanding. All the musical instruments that are happening in this region are slightly fuller sounding, more textured, richer sounding. There is more positive energy emanating from guitars, from violins, from pipes, from pianos. Everything is just more contoured, more outlined in this region. It also adds plenty of weight where there is none, so You can feel that everything is just weightier sounding, it has more body, and you can feel that immediately after pressing play. Think about an Odyssey LCD2 that traded planar drivers with dynamic drivers, so Caspian is like that and a little bit different. As for treble, as I was saying, in the most sensitive part of our hearing, somewhere between 4 and 7 kHz, there is a gentle roll-off that completely deletes listening fatigue out of existence, making Caspian one of the easiest to listen to headphones that there are right now on the market. So you can hear the upper treble very clean and very defined, but you will never experience piercing trebles. So Caspian is slightly gentle when it comes to treble output. You can hear it loud and clear, but it's never bothering in the long run. So on linear and bright setups, you can make them slightly more extended, slightly more crisper sounding, but you will never make them fatiguing sounding, no matter how hard you try. Overall, I would describe them as organic sounding, fully preserving the soul of the music by adding some warmth where there isn't, by adding some meaning to your music. It's lifelike, but never blunt or dull sounding, and that is all you need to know about them. I have also measured their performance using a mini DSP ear system, so everything from frequency response, total harmonic distortion, spectral decay, waterfall and spectrogram. But since I don't like long and boring reviews, I strongly recommend checking out my measurement analysis in the written review that I've put below. You'll also find a must-read comparison with the Sennheiser HD600, which I find super duper interesting, so please check all that goodness below, it's worth your time. As for my conclusions, I'm a little sad that my Apos Caspian story comes to an end, but their life cycle has just begun and hopefully you'll try them someday. There aren't that many headphones in the $500 to $1,000 price bracket, and this is where Apos Caspian fits in like a glove. So we wanted to offer you an upgrade path to your entry to mid-level headphones until you declare war to your wallet and go the high-end route. So we never wanted to make them super linear or very straight as a line when it comes to frequency response. We wanted to offer you a relaxed and joyful listening experience without strangling you to an office filled with expensive and heavy-duty equipment. And I challenge you finding a more sensitive audiophile-grade desktop headphone that provides the same acoustic properties and the same long-lasting build quality. Okay guys, my full in-depth review can be found on my website. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it, and as usual, listen to my music, be positive, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!